The Winnipeg Jets are 3-0, the Manitoba Moose are 2-0, and they released their goal songs. That's what we're going to talk about on episode 102 of the Level Flight podcast. Okay, we good to go?
Always good to go.
I'm just chilling at Canada Life Center.
That's the hard-hitting analysis you listen to the Level Flight podcast for.
Here we go.
Jets are a brisket team, low and slow for the first two periods, and boom, an explosion of flavor in the last few minutes of the third.
Doing all right. Better if my internet would work.
No.
Elliot.
This is comedy. I'm Brian. I'm joined by Connor.
Hello.
And Elliot.
Hey.
Wow, that was fun.
You're listening to the Level Flight podcast. And welcome in everyone to episode 102 of the Level Flight podcast. We're joined by Connor again. He's back. It's been a little bit since we've all been on here. Fortunately, Elliot right now in a class. So he did offer to see if maybe the prof wanted to join us as a guest, but you know, I of all profs though, I think that he would be the one to maybe say yes, but he wasn't going to, test that level of sort of commitment there. But before we get into anything, Connor, how you doing?
Doing great. Glad to be back on. Glad we could find the time through this busy time. As people know, like there's been less content from us over the past, couple weeks here as Jets season has begun. So I'm glad we have the time here. Rank the goal songs. We've done this the last two seasons. I'm super excited to do it. And talk about two undefeated hockey teams in Winnipeg.
Yeah. So we're going to get to the goal songs a little bit later in the episode, after our ad break there. Because I'll be honest, it was way harder this year to actually pick a clear cut top five, at least personally. But
they're better this year.
I think
that's the take. As a whole, they're better this year. I think I was saying this to you the other day that like individually they were better last year. Like Macarena kind of saved it. But like some of the bad ones were really bad. I think as a whole group, they're a lot better this year. So it was really difficult to pick a top five, I will say.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, before we get into any of that, the goal songs themselves were heard this weekend.
Yes.
Last week, we didn't really get a chance to talk about it. We ended up putting out an episode just because of some timing and everything. But Jets start with a massive win against the Edmonton Oilers, who are scuffling a little. They kick off their season with a bang. They drop 6 on the Oilers in Edmonton. That was now, I guess, today's Thursday. So it was over a week ago that happened. Then they come home and they have 2 thrilling overtime wins against the Blackhawks and the Wild. Connor, what did you see out of those? Obviously there's the weekend games, and we can touch briefly on the Edmonton game, but out of the 3 games, what's something that stood out to you that they've just been doing right?
I think Connor Hellebuyck's .976 save percentage is a big one. The fact that they've only allowed 2 goals, at 1 goal in each game, taken into overtime 1-1. That's the positives that I've noticed. The negatives, the lack of 5-on-5 offense. I posted a stat yesterday on Twitter that their last, again, they've played 3 games. So this is not like, oh my God, they're never going to score 5-on-5. This is like, hey, something to monitor going forward is their last and expected goals for per 60 at 5-on-5. So they're not generating nearly enough at 5-on-5. And we see that with the second line. At times you see that with the first line. The third line, more of a shutdown role, so you can't really fault them for not generating offense, even though they generated a ton of it in the Edmonton game. And then defensively, they're not getting as many chances off the rush either from their defense, which was a big thing last year. But again, I think both of those are going to change. But what you wanted to see coming into the season, and let's be honest, the Jets smoked Edmonton. They're having a really rough start to their season. Outside of that, they have a pretty light start to their year. Like it gets really tough getting into November. You go on those like East Coast road trips. Some of the good Central Division teams come to town. But to start the year, it's pretty light schedule. So what you wanted to see was that team identity remain, the defense. Connor Hellebuyck looks dialed in right now. And yeah, the line combinations are something that we'll have to watch for going forward. But I think the Jets know, and everyone who watches the game knows that they're simply not generating enough right now. I don't know. What do you think? I think that's kind of the consensus around town, is that they could be doing a lot better, but it's good to see that the defense that they created last year kind of remained.
Yeah, and I think that you labeled it properly with the Hellebuck, dominance carrying over.
My
It's
goodness.
really,
So
really
good.
hard to believe that at this time last year, we were starting to wonder, when he was gonna kick it into gear because he struggled to start last year.
Yes. Yep.
For honestly about the first month of the season, he did not look like himself, and then, obviously we all know he ended up winning the Jennings, he ended up winning the Vezina, so that's nothing to worry about, now, but do you th I truly wonder if this is a situation where he gets into rhythm because they're playing those, lower opponents. They're not playing Stanley Cup
Yeah.
contenders right off the bat. I think too that him backstopping early
Yeah.
and kind of saving the team from, losing to these teams. I think that that's going to be good for his confidence, but it also gives the rest of the team a chance to really settle in. I mean, I've liked what I've seen from the power play so far in terms of the movement.
Good
Uh,
call.
I think that as you said, the 5-on-5 is where they struggle, but so far, 3-on-3, 4-on-3, and then 5-on-4, I've been quite impressed with what they've done. Their penalty kill has been fairly solid as well, but once again, that's another Connor Hellebuck thing where he is and always will be the best penalty killer on the team. Um, I do worry a little bit about the 5-on-5 play purely because it's with very similar systems and almost identical lines to what gave them fits last year at 5-on-5.
Yes.
And I think you put it nicely where I guess we'll see how long these line combinations last because I'm curious as to where Scott Arniel is on it based on, his reliance on that top line and him wanting to make that work. But ultimately, if you want to get 5-on-5 all lines going and that second line, which looks almost unplayable right now.
Yeah.
If you want to get them going, it might be a hard decision as to who you move around. We've said it a lot over the last couple of years that I think we all think that Cole Perfetti and Kyle Connor could work magic together, but they seem very hesitant to do that switch. And I think that everyone remembers how strong that top line was when it was
Right.
Scheifele Velarde, but there's always that familiarity. I think that we're obviously going to talk more and more about as the season goes on if it if it persists. But
Yeah.
Connor Scheifele thing is something that almost never failing. They are going to be together to start until things go brutally wrong or someone gets hurt. And yeah,
Yeah. And to further like the point I made earlier, which is like they have a pretty light start to the schedule here. So yeah, they're good enough with this line configuration to beat San Jose at home and beat Pittsburgh at home and go on the road and beat St. Louis and beat Seattle. Like these are not the powerhouse teams in the Western Conference. You're not going into Dallas and getting shelled, right? Your top line's not getting the top line's been fine. I think they've had some really good moments. I think they've had some really poor moments where they can't break the puck out. Um, and I get it from Scott O'Neill's perspective. Honestly, all three of those players missed time last year. As for Connor and Scheifele, they missed significant time. So maybe he thinks that with a full training camp together, which they had, and maybe a good like 10, 15 game sample size that they can really round into form. And maybe Velarde can be that guy that finally, more than breaks even for Connor and Scheifele, who have historically just break even their whole career when playing together, I should say. But I don't know. The conversation for me is less about the top line, which that was the discourse last year. Is like, oh my god, it's Connor Scheifele Velarde should be Ehlers because they're so much better, and that was totally valid at the time. For me, it's right now. You brought it up. It's more about the second line. I mean, Ehlers and Perfetti just don't really mix together. Vladislav Nemeskov's had a really rough start to the season, I've thought, like in transition, just fumbling pucks.
yeah,
And Cole Perfetti's had a slow start, which we talked about as a possibility because he did miss. I don't know if he would have played in those two preseason games at the start, but he did miss them. He did miss 5 days of skates, um, just kind of skating on his own, not being a part of the power play practices, not being a part of whatever 5-on-5 drills they were doing and stuff like that. So I think they'll be fine. I think their Minnesota game was actually their best, the second line. So I think after this weekend, again, they're two bad teams, but you might see a few games where the Jets actually generate a healthy amount against one of these teams, like San Jose or Pittsburgh, where they actually generate like 3.5, 4 expected goals, which is like double what they've done in all these other games. And everything just kind of clicks. If not, then yeah, they'll eventually run into a really good team, and it won't go as well for them.
Yeah, as you said, like these next two teams, that in theory they should be, easier to generate on. You've got a very kind of all over the place in terms of roster construction San Jose team that they know that they're not going to be overly competitive. So they're taking this as another year, I think, to really finish down low and continue the rebuild. I believe Macklin Celebrini is still on IR. There was talk that the earliest he could be removed is today. So I mean, unless there's been some big development, it looks like they're going to be without him tomorrow against the Sharks. I do also think that it matters a lot that you're essentially playing the retirement home that is the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yes.
That is the oldest team in the NHL, and obviously some of their older players are still very, very impactful. Sidney Crosby just gathered his 1600th point, and he is going to continue to be a force until the day he finally says, "I've had enough," which seems to be a never at this point.
Yeah.
But I think though that the rest of that roster is just a lot of guys that aren't built to be dominant in any way whatsoever. So if you can take advantage of these matchups, I think you're in for a lot of success there. And speaking of success, 2 games in Iowa for the Manitoba Moose, they end up on the winning side of both. It was, and I wrote about this, actually it came out this morning. So I guess yesterday, if you're listening to this on Friday, about how you can kind of see the method to how they're going to find their success this year through just 2 games, where it's going to be a lot of, veterans around the younger guys, and those younger guys producing with them and learning from them. Because you had, a bunch of points from, Brad Lambert. Nikita Chibrikov has 4 points in 2 games. Elias Salmonson has 2 points or 3 points and his first AHL goal in those 2 games there. But you also have, guys like Mason Shaw scoring the game winner against his former, his former team there. But I think the thing that stood out to me, and you've dove into this a lot, and we've talked about him a ton in terms of sort of someone to keep your eye on, as someone who is kind of a wild card. Dom DiVincentis, first AHL start on the Sunday. He comes out, stops 37 of 39 shots to earn his first win, when I don't think anyone really thought that was going to be the tandem. I think everyone kind of assumed that either one of Comrie or Kakinen was going to be the veteran presence there, and then the other one would start in the ECHL. But with Kakinen getting picked up on waivers, which we didn't mention because we haven't really talked about your goaltending depth is suspect.
And look, well, the whole thing with DiVincentis is that they wanted him, or theoretically they wanted him. I don't know. I'm not speaking for the Winnipeg Jets organization, but theoretically you want him to start in the ECHL because of how last year went for him. The year before that, we were talking about DiVincentis as this really high level prospect because he's a goalie. He won goalie of the year. And then last year he really fell off. He had some high moments, some low moments, kind of ended the year okay. And we've brought up on this podcast many times that goalies are voodoo, and this will happen with prospects, especially. They'll have great seasons, they'll have bad seasons. But I think getting him in the organization is actually a win here, like on the Moose. I know the ECHL team technically still in the organization and like very close and can be called up to the Manitoba Moose at any point, but actually playing professional hockey, and as long as he doesn't collapse, and he did the absolute opposite of that on Sunday. That I just want to make that clear. 37 saves. Like that is an incredible performance for your first win. As long as he doesn't absolutely collapse this season, I think the AHL is going to be fine for DiVincentis. It's a massive step up from where he struggled last year, which is really interesting, but to kind of work through those struggles in a pro league with Milic, a guy who's also young, also learning, going through those details together, I think will really help. And then, see where this season kind of takes you with both of those guys, because those are your goalies of the future, maybe your backup goaltenders next year or the year after. Maybe Milic. Milic, I believe, is already 23, 24 years old because he was an overager when they drafted him. Yep. So or maybe he's I forget what age he is, but he's over 20, and I think he could be the backup soon enough, right? That's why he played in the AHL last year, because he couldn't go back to junior. He was too old. So I do think that this is I know ideally at the start of the season the Jets probably mapped it out that DiVincentis would be in the ECHL, but I do think that this is okay. And as long as he doesn't, completely collapse like he did last year at times, not the whole season, but at times in the OHL, I think it'll be okay. And I
That's
like
the
it.
thing. Like I'm tempering my expectations based on one start. I truly
Me too.
think that anything in terms of consistent performance for him is going to be a really good thing, because I don't think anyone's
Yes,
expecting him to be in contention for an NHL spot for at least another 2-3 years.
for sure.
Thomas Milic, I don't think anyone anticipated him being, he ended up being the guy down the stretch for the Moose last
Mhm.
season. He started in the ACHL, and then based on injuries and whatever, he ended up having to be, someone who came up and played consistent games. But it's interesting because for the longest time after Hellebuck came up, there was a lot of questions in the Jets goaltending pipeline. And then you've got two
Yes.
guys who I believe were born in 2003 and 2004, respectively, manning the crease for your AHL affiliate. So I think ultimately the team's going to have to do better around them than they did last year, because there was a lot of shots on net last year. And then we saw that in, this weekend where they allowed a lot to make it to the net. And they ended up winning the first one in a bit of a shootout where, Milic struggled. He did allow, I think, 4 goals on, I don't remember how many shots, but he started a little bit shakier than I think what people had hoped in the home opener. But that's the thing; it's or not the home opener, but the opener.
Season.
It's no one's expecting him to come out and be like the best goaltender in the AHL. But I think that if these two can kind of just split games and get experience and learn together, I think that's big. Like a lot of the times, there's going to be a veteran teaching the young, goaltenders. I think they're both just going to be relying on their goaltending coach, Drew McIntyre,
Yeah.
and he is going to have to help guide them. And he played years, in the AHL. He knows how this goes, and I think having those two learn, the ropes together, and having Milic, play so many games last season, I think it might be a little rough at times because they don't have that experience to lean on. But
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. But outside of the crease, though, I think that you're seeing a nice little youth infusion. We have no idea how long those guys are going to be there because a couple injuries, some performance
That's
stuff.
the
They
thing
could
with
be
the
up with the
AHL. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. But I'm going to be covering the Moose a little bit more closely this year, so I'm looking forward to seeing it. But for you, obviously, there's the Lamberts, there's the Chipperkovs,
Yes.
there's the Salmonson. Um, Out of those guys, in terms of what you're looking for, I think for me, I think the Sal Monson, angle is a bit more interesting because he had never played on North American ice before this preseason.
Mhm.
Um, what do you want to see from him in terms of his game, going forward? Because he's going to play some big minutes. He's playing with Simon Lundmark, who is one of the
Yep.
longest tenured defensemen on the team.
For sure, yeah, and the biggest thing you brought it up is that adjustment to the North American ice, and I want to see kind of the same game that we saw from Elias over in Sweden. We talked to Scott Wheeler, I think it was last summer, and he was saying how the progression, he's taken such a massive leap. I think he even said something along the lines of like if there was a redraft, he'd go in the first round or something like that. He's raised his stock significantly. Then he comes into training camp, was right there till the end, and looked, I thought, better and better with each game. And I now think I'd be shocked if we don't see Elias Salamonson get NHL games this year, let alone playing the AHL. I do think I still would like to see him get like a good 3 months here in the AHL, maybe like 2 to 3 months, play a lot of games down there, play big minutes, top power play, hopefully penalty killing, all that stuff. So I do hope that he gets that responsibility placed on him in the AHL and adjusts to it well. I also got to shout out our guy, Danny Jilkin. What a
That
goal.
goal he scored on Sunday was outstanding.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. He's through 2 games, he's lining up as the second line center for them, which is a huge opportunity for him to really, grow into his game, at the AHL level. And I know he's also playing on that line with a guy like Mason Shaw, who's He's done his rounds in this league. Like he knows the AHL, and he's been in, bouncing around the AHL for quite a few years now as the sort of a top AHL guy who's never really been able to make that next step. So I think it'll be nice to have that veteran presence, but also he's got a guy like Nikita Chibrikov on his wing, and someone as tenacious as that, he's going to make your life easier by getting you the puck. So I think that's really a great scenario for him. And, he rewards the team by scoring a highlight reel goal in game 2 of the season.
That line of Shaw, Zhilkin, Chibrikov is going to be so hard to play against, and so hard to
problem from other teams.
Yeah, going to be hard to break the puck out against. And then when you have Danny Zhilkin doing stuff like that, going end to end and just beating multiple players on his way to scoring a goal, like that's what's going to make them a really, really good line. And I think Chibrikov can also, and Shaw as well. You talked about the veteran experience, and Zhilkin. I mean, he had the goal that we're talking about right now. If they can add kind of a rush element, score these skillful goals rather than, the chip and chase, dump it in, grind it out goals, that's going to really, really elevate them as a line. So that'll be interesting to see. I know the Moose home opener isn't, again, for another 10 days or so. It's not till next weekend, but I'm still excited to catch some games this year at CLC.
Yeah, absolutely. And they have 2 games this weekend against the Grand Rapids Griffins, Friday and Saturday. And then, they come back for the 26th and 27th for their home opener and their home opening series against the Rockford Ice Hogs. So, I'll be in attendance for those. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm getting the chance to be a credentialed writer, to actually be in the building writing about the team this year. So I'm really looking forward to that opportunity. It's been fantastic to get that chance. I know you had that chance a couple years back to really get your foot in the door, and watching these guys grow into the players that the Jets will eventually need to call up is going to be really exciting, and I'm looking forward to giving the perspective from that view now to actually getting a chance to watch that. But this weekend and next weekend, games 3, 4, and then the home opener, that'll be great. And then as we mentioned, the Jets 2 games this weekend. We're going to get now into the goal songs, but before we do that, we're going to hear a word from our sponsors, DraftKings and Game Time, and we will be right back with those rankings. This episode of the Level Flight Podcast is brought to you by Game Time. You really can't beat live hockey. The chatter of the fans around you, the sounds of the skates cutting up the ice, and the crashing of players into the boards are just some of the things that stick with you forever. Having been to a number of games in my life, I know I'll never forget it. Are you looking to catch the action? Well, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The Winnipeg Jets take on the Utah Hockey Club for the first time on November 5th, and there are some incredible deals. Game Time Super Deal has seats in the 5th row of Section 220 for just $87 all in. Looking for something else? There's also an amazing deal in the upper deck in Section 324 for just $27. It's easy. Just select your preferred deal, follow the Game Time app, and boom, you're set. Some of my favorite features are how you can check out Seat View, a panoramic view of what your seats would be, or how Game Time curates your deals to find the best price on great seats. And one of the best things about Game Time is how they show all-in pricing with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create account and redeem code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. This episode of the Level Flight Podcast is also brought to you by DraftKings. The quest for the Stanley Cup starts now. The puck's dropping on the 2024-2025 season. Get in on all the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. And if you are new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
And welcome back into episode 102 of the Level Flight podcast. We've talked about the game action for both the Jets and Moose, but now it's time to get into the real hard-hitting topics. And that's our annual Jets goal song playlist. You know, for content purposes, I have never been happier that a team has continued to do something like this because, you know, before having the same one over and over again, it got a little stale, but now we get to, you know, dive into the real deep analysis of why everyone's goal songs are either great or awful.
Yes.
I mean, before we get into the top five, so yeah, we'll alternate going, you know, our 5, our 4, our 3, our 2, our 1, obviously. But before we do that, I think there's a few that almost made the lists for both of us. You know, some honorable mentions. I know we both have a couple. I'll give you the floor first, Connor. What do you think are some of yours that just missed the list?
Yeah, I'm looking down. If you see me looking down, if you're watching on YouTube, it's because I'm looking at the goal song list. But anyways, honorable mentions. I'm gonna say Eric Comrie, Sweet Caroline. That's I mean, again, I find it hard to put a goalie on the list because I mean, I guess Philip Gustafson scored the other night for the Minnesota Wild, but it's just like you're never really gonna hear it. Whatever. But I think that is a really good one. And if that was like a player, it would be, I think, in my top 5. Colin Miller, we like to party is another honorable mention for me. Matt Hyman, who I know listens to the LFP, big listener. I will say, he loves that choice, and I do as well. And I think that's about it for my. And I'm gonna say, Pour Me a Drink, Josh Morrissey, Post Malone, and Blake Shelton. That's a really great song, and I play it a lot, and I played it a lot in the summer. I just don't think it's a great like fan interaction in the building song. Like it's a great song to play, I think, in a commercial break or something. Like it's an upbeat, great vibe song, but I don't think after a goal it's the right choice. So I've thought long and hard about this, but those are my honorable mentions. What about you?
Yeah, I think for me, I have to start off because I've you know, I grew up in a Bon Jovi household. You know, I have to give Hayden Fleury some love here for "It's My Life." You know, I love the song. I honestly, I think it just didn't make it on the list because there's just as we mentioned, there's so many just like solid songs all the way through that it just got outnumbered. I have to also give a shout out to you know, it's hard to really articulate how much I enjoy the song. I'm not sure it works as well as a goal song, but Ville Heinola and the Final Countdown by Europe.
Yes.
Absolutely love that. And then there's honestly, like as we've said, like I honestly I don't think I dislike a single one of these. I still find it hilarious that Adam Lowry continues to shock me with his music tastes. He's, you know, he plays this really hard-nosed, gritty game. You know, he's the toughness. And the last 2 years, he's, you know, picked very, very popular songs in, you know, in I think last year was Little Boo Thang by Paul Russell. And then this year we got Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter. And
wait, is that an honorable mention or is that on your list? Espresso.
Oh no, that's an honorable mention.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, I like the tune, but once again, I think it just got outnumbered.
Fair enough.
But
okay.
I will. I'll give you the floor now. Who's
for
your
number 5? My number 5, Vlad Nemestikov, Who Let the Dogs Out. I just think that this is when we first heard it, when they were introducing all the players, everyone just kind of like laughed because it was just like, of course, someone picks this song. It's like very recognizable. Everyone has heard this song in their life. It's something that the fan interaction could get behind after a goal. And I think it's just a great song. So it needed to slot in, and I'm gonna put it at 5 because I do think there are some better fan interaction, like sing along, dance along kind of songs. But this one I think makes the list for me. I'll give you the floor for number 5.
My number 5, I'm giving it to Mark Scheifele, "Shoot to Thrill" by AC/DC.
Nice.
I
Nice.
think that's the thing. He is such, he scores at a good enough clip that I think this works. Because if you were someone who had Shoot to Thrill but didn't score a goal like all season, I don't think I would agree with the choice. But I think that the level of sort of I'm gonna score a goal. I'm shooting to thrill. I feel like
Yeah.
there's a background to it, and I think that this might be the first time that Shifley's gone the classic rock route here. So
Right. Yeah.
I I I
Last.
I, I like the choice. It gives me. I mean, that's the thing. I also associate the song with the Iron Man film franchise.
Yes.
So it gets me going. But yeah, that's my 5.
That is a great choice. I'll go with my number 4. I know this was your number 1 last year, I believe. But Let's Go Crazy, Dylan Sandberg, Prince. One of my favorite returning ones. Again, this is just such an upbeat song, gets you fired up in the building when it's blasting through Canada Life Center and people are like going nuts. It's even better song than it already is. So that's going to come in at number 4 for me. It's one of 2 returning songs on my list, and then the other 3, Vlad Nemestikov and the 2 others I will mention, are all new. But there are 2 that are returning, and there are a good amount of returning goal songs, I'd say. And some of the ones that do return are my favorites, hence the fact that there's 2 of them in my top 5. But Let's Go Crazy, Dylan Sandberg, Prince. I know I think that was your number 1 last year.
I
So
believe it was. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's a great choice. I hope he never changes it.
It's terrific. I mean, it
Yeah.
pays respect to his his place of birth.
Hometown. Yes.
Big Minnesota guy. So
Yep.
obviously that's gonna get in there for him. My number 4 going to Cole Perfetti. Jump
Ah,
Around by House of Pain. This fulfills the requirement of really getting the crowd into it that you have a lot. So I think that kind of goes without saying that you know this song kind of gets everyone on their feet. They're jumping, they're going. I know it's very big in the college football circles.
yeah.
So I think for Perfetti to have that, and I'm hoping that he scores a bunch because I think that'll really get everyone into it. No, I think that's what I'm going to settle with at number 4. I've been jumping around in like my 3 to 5 range for the last like day that I've been wondering about this. So I
Yeah.
think that's going to be at my number 4.
Yeah, the 3 to 5 range was so tough. I have a pretty clear top 3. But that or I guess my 4, 5, and honorable mentions were really tough to nail down because there's so many good ones. And the Perfetti one is one that didn't make the list for me. That is a really good song, and I wish I could include it in my top 5, but they just chose too well this year. Um, I'm going to number 3. And I'm going to Mark Scheifele, Shoot to Thrill. You brought it up earlier. I think this also has a little bit of recency bias behind it because Mark Scheifele scored so many massive goals over the weekend. Um, and when you score with a minute left against the Blackhawks on home opening night and Shoot to Thrills blasting through Canada Life Center as like a near sellout crowd goes nuts, like that is one of the best songs you can play in that moment. It fires everyone up. It's very recognizable ACDC. There's no fan interaction to this, but it's just it's such like you said, it reminds me of the Iron Man series as well. It's just such a great song for scoring big goals. And I think Shifley's going to score a lot of big goals. And I had to have an ACDC one on here. I think it's the best of the 3 between him, Stanley, and Baron. Baron going, "It's a long way to the top." Stanley going, "You shook me all night long." I think this is the best ACDC choice, in my opinion. We'll see if
I
you
would agree.
disagree. Okay. I was going to say, we'll see in your list. But yeah, Mark Shifley, Shoot to Thrill. I think if he hadn't had such a big weekend, this wouldn't be so high. But we heard it a lot over the weekend, and I can confirm that it is awesome in arena. So Mark Shifley.
Perfect. Uh, my number 3 spot is filled by my number 1 from last year. Let's Go
Nice.
Crazy slides to number 3 for me, not because I have lost any love for it, but some of the new things and some rethinking of some old favorites has changed my mind a little bit. Still love Prince, still listen to this song almost religiously outside of Jet circles, but
Yeah.
for me, I just it's one of those songs that I can't find a whole lot wrong with it, especially in terms of this. I know too. I don't know if they still do, but the Vikings used to use it for
They still do. Can
their
confirm.
touchdown song.
Can confirm.
I'm not a Vikings fan, and well, probably just based on demographics, a lot of our listenership is just based on geographically. Go Packers! But I can't speak too much on it because the Vikings are still undefeated. So I'll end it at that.
Yes. Yes. Very
With
fair.
one of those wins coming against your Niners, and
Yep.
also against my Packers. So we are kind of stuck here. But
Yep.
no, back to the goal songs. Let's Go Crazy, Prince, Dylan Sandberg's goal song slides in at number 3. Who's your number 2?
I will just say real quick, I know because of that Niners game that I went to that their touchdown song is Let's Go Crazy, and it works as a touchdown song. They got the fireworks going, they got everyone going nuts, and everyone's going crazy, Let's Go Crazy. I think it's such a great touchdown song. The Vikings just put on such a show. It's so awesome being in that stadium. But anyways, number 2, this was my number 1 last year, I believe, sliding down one spot. Macarena, Gabe Vilardi. I'm so glad that this one returned. I'm sure someone was in his ear saying you can't change your goal song because it was like the biggest hit last year. But yeah, by the end of the year / when he was going through that really hot streak around Christmas time, he would score a goal and you'd cut to the crowd and you'd have people doing the Macarena dance. And like, it's such a thing now that Gabe Vilardi scores. It's like, oh, here comes Macarena. Like it's a part of his brand. And I think I'm so glad that he kept it because it's the number 1 fan interaction song in terms of like dancing along. And it's one that a lot of people recognize in the building, if not everyone. So I'm really glad Vilardi brought that back, and I'm hoping we hear that a lot this year as well. Macarena is my number 2.
My number 2, it's been up there for me ever since they introduced it in 2011. I have loved this song ever since, and I think it just works so well as a goal song, and I think it throws it back to those days where you'd have, guys like Kyle Wellwood scoring big goals for the team.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm talking about Kyle Connor's pick of Hell Yeah by Rev Theory. It, to me, I think just works. I mean, obviously, one, there's the nostalgia factor because it really brings it back to the early days of the Jets, coming back from obviously their long absence here. But I think with Connor scoring as much as he does, it makes it feel like it's like the main goal song again, and it worked so well for many years. And I think it was like 2016 that they maybe changed it. When he brought it back as his goal song, it brought a little piece of me back. Not to get existential here, but I think it just works so well. So yeah, Hell Yeah, Kyle Connor's song this year, coming in at number 2 for me. Connor, who's your number 1?
We're off to the number 1s. I will just say before naming my number 1, our lists are more different this year than I think they ever have been. And that is a testament to how good the songs are this year. Like there are so many good ones. Like Kyle Connor's Hell Yeah, not on my list. Didn't even bring it up as an honorable mention. I know. Well, I'm at my number 1, and I asked you before if my number 1 was even on your list, and it wasn't. It's Espresso, Sabrina Carpenter, Adam Lowry. I will say, not only the reason this is number 1 for me, like Song of the Summer, insanely catchy, will be a great song. Tons of people will recognize it in the building. Is it the best like hype up song after a goal? Maybe not, but I also think that the playing into it a little bit was what you mentioned with Lowry, where he's the guy you would least expect to pick a song like this. He had Lil Boothang last year, and now he has Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter. Like, I want to see Adam Lowry's playlist. Like, what does that look like? But
I'm honestly kind of scared.
It's full of like Taylor Swift, Sabrina Carpenter, like just all.
But it wouldn't shock me to find out that he's just also got like everything that you'd expect that hard-nosed, gritty player to listen to. He's got country, he's got classic rock, he's got all that. He might have the most chaotic playlist that we'll never see. And
Agreed.
I'm upset about that.
Yes. I think one day we'll have to see it if this goal song thing keeps up, where he just keeps.
Connor, you get in that locker room and you ask to see his Spotify or Apple Music playlist. Because that in itself could be a full episode, breaking it down,
goodness,
song by song. putting it in tiers.
Tier list, Adam Lowry's playlist. Yeah, no, I do think this is my number one. Espresso, Sabrina Carpenter, great song of the summer, number one hit in the world. Everyone will recognize it. It's a great song, and I'd least expect Lowry to pick it. That's why it's my number one.
My number one didn't make it on your list either.
Really?
Not even an honorable mention.
These are like complete opposites. Our list. This is ridiculous.
But I have brought in the help of Alex Iafallo, Fight for Your Right, Beastie Boys. That song to me is among the ultimate hype songs. And granted, most things by Beastie Boys just kind of jive with me really well. So I think that may have become a bit of a bias to me, but as a goal song, it works so well because it is that level of like, you're pushing back, something that we've spoken about a lot.
Pushback.
You're pushing back, you're fighting for every inch on the ice. And, for him, I'm hoping that he's going to score consistently enough to hear it. Especially if he's, playing further down the lineup, it'd be nice to have the depth scoring and then have that because he's fighting for every minute there. And so he's fighting for his right to party. And I think that, to me, it stood out as like a song that I think they needed last year because there was, as we mentioned, there was a lot of songs that just didn't necessarily work as goal songs last year. I think everything works this year. Yeah. And this, to me, I think sticks out. But yeah, I don't know. I'm looking forward to hearing it for the first time.
I love the pick. I do think, what plays into this for me and why it wasn't on my list or an honorable mention. I'm a San Francisco 49ers fan, pretty big San Francisco 49ers fan. And if you're aware of Travis Kelce and what he does after every single like AFC championship win, every single Super Bowl win that these damn Chiefs get, he sings this song. So this is engraved in my brain as like a bad memory, this song. But I will say it's great for the fan interaction thing that I brought up earlier where, people can sing along, people can yell along to a song like this. And it's a fire up song after someone scores. So I like the pick, but I needed to get my rationale out there for why I didn't even honorably mention it. It's got some bad memories attached to it.
He's trashing Travis Kelce. Swifties, get him.
Yes, yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Have your
no Taylor Swift
full
on the goal songs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily shocked by it. I guarantee you, though, there's a lot of these guys who've got a lot of, Taylor Swift on their playlist. Maybe it'll be, maybe they're all waiting for the new Taylor's version to drop.
Maybe
they're all fans of Reputation, and that's why they're waiting. So, yeah, maybe next year we'll have some more variety again. I think it works really good this year, but sometimes it's fun if there's one that just doesn't fit. So yeah, we'll see about that next year. But that'll do it for us here on episode 102 of the Level Flight podcast. That's always a lot of fun. It's an episode we look forward to every single year. Well, hopefully next week or whenever we record next, we can get Elliot's list because unfortunately, as we said, he could not join us today. I know he'll have some opinions on this. I have a feeling that based on how ours differed, he might go entirely different as well. So yeah, we'll be able to see that. But no, that'll be for a next week sort of thing. But we'll have to bug him for his because he hasn't given his list to us yet. So
right. He's withholding it.
He is. Maybe it's just it's too hot. The hot takes are out here. Maybe I'm scared to see it. Maybe that's the whole thing. He doesn't want anyone else to see it.
Maybe.
Elliot, we're calling you out.
Exactly.
Love it. Yeah. We'll get out of here for today. Make sure you go, like and subscribe on YouTube. Rate and review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And of course, as always, follow us on social media at Level Flight Winnipeg. That'll be where we kind of let all of you know when we're actually uploading because it's going to be a little less consistent in terms of when that is. But we're going to try and get it out at least once a week, going forward here, especially now that the Jets are back in full force. But yeah, Connor, this was fun. certainly talk more about what the Jets are going to do this weekend against the Sharks and the Penguins, what the Moose are going to do against the Grand Rapids Griffins. And we will see you next time on the Level Flight Podcast. See ya.